Hello students, good morning to all of you. Welcome back to this virtual class. We have already finished that first part, macroeconomics, and today we'll start that part B, that is Indian economic development. And this part B consists of that 40 marks, and it is the theoretical portions. So you must do your homework, do your note work regularly. Although it is a very easy paper, but to remember all the data and interpret as per our questions. So today's topic is Indian economy on the eve of independence. Indian economy on the eve of independence. First of all, I want to say that whenever we got our freedom, that is 15th August 1947, whenever I am discussing Indian economy on the eve of independence, thus this part B name is that Indian economic development. So what do you mean by Indian economic developments? The main objective of the book Indian economic development is to familiarize with basic features of the Indian economy and its process of development. It means we reached this stage in the 21st century by the different stages, and to develop in the different process. Think yourself, when India got her freedom, at that time the Indian people was not getting the 2 times meal properly. And before the independence, what are the conditions? You have already known how the Britishers were ruling to our countries. And before entering that British rule through that colonial system, what was our economic condition? More or less, you have already known from your history. I will not discuss in detail. So, it is important to first look at the state of the Indian economy prior to the country's independence, and from the idea of the various considerations that shaped India's post-independence developed strategies. So whenever we are discussing the developed strategy, but as per our topic is concerned, as per our chapter is concerned, before the independence or on the eve of independence, what was the condition of our Indian economy? So that is why I have written the origin of the British rule. You have already known the year of 1757, the Battle of Plassey. The British rule over India changed the course of history in India. The foundation of British Empire in India was led by the British of Plassey, that is in the year of 1757. So whenever Britishers entered to our countries, at that time, the basic purpose of the British rule. What was the basic purpose of that British rule? The main purpose of the British rule was to use Indian economy. I am written here to use that Indian economy, feeder economy, for the development of the British economy. For the development of the British economy. It means they entered to our country for that trade purpose, and the objective was that how to exploit to Indian resources and how that country will develop, means the British country will develop. That is that feeder economy for the development of that British economy. This is the most important, the basic purpose. It means we will give all kinds of resources, whatever they require. And by taking our resources, human resources, physical resources, all these resources, they will develop to their own country. So that was the basic purpose of that British country. As a result of, they started their own policy. They started their development policies. They started their process of development to their own country, that is the British country. So that they exploit the Indian natural resources and human resources. How they will exploit these resources of Indian resources, that is why they make the plan. So they started that colonial systems. They started that colonial systems. Finally, whenever they exploited to our resources, but what are the stages we have proceed, and we got our freedom after the 200 years of British rule. India gained independence from them on 15th August 1947. So whenever we are discussing Indian economy on the eve of independence, at that time, what was the condition of our Indian economy? So in this chapter, we will study in brief the state of the Indian economy prior to independence. Just after the attainment of the independence, to appreciate of the current economic status of our economy, and we should understand the factors that led to that underdevelopment and stagnation of the Indian economy. I will discuss one by one all these points. What do we mean stagnations? What do we mean colonial exploitations? So first of all, whenever they started that colonial exploitations, that means under the British rule, how they exploit. That is the first point I have written here, colonial exploitations of the Indian economy under the British rule. So first of all, I want to discuss what do you mean by colonial or colonialism. Most of the students are staying here either colony 1 or colony 2. What does it mean? You try to understand. It means one is the ruler, and other is that who is residing its colony. It means colonialism refers to system of political and social relation between the two countries. Here is that the political and social relations between the two countries. Political and social relations. Between two countries. That is called colonialism. It means one is the ruler and another is the residing. So Britishers are the ruler to our country. British governments, they rule to our countries. They made their economy policies. They made their political policies. So they want to develop their economy by taking our resources to their own countries. So whenever they exploited to our country, what was the freedom or what was the standard of living of the people? What was the basic independence of our Indian standard of living? That should be exploited by themselves. It means the ruling country not only has political control over the country, but also it determines the economic policy of the dominated countries. So in case of India, the unequal relationship between the colony, that is in India, and the ruling country here is the Britain, resulted in underdevelopment of India. It means before that Britishers came to our country, India was self-sustained economy. India was self-sustained growth of economies. India's professional economy was very sound conditions. Whenever they entered to our countries, they realized that how these countries are being survived with peacefully if that economy is sound. That is why they thought in such a way that how these policies can be implemented in such a way that which way we can, that economy can be destroyed of that India. That is why they started their colonial systems. So in these colonial systems, there are three-tier systems. There is a three-tier system. One is government. The government is here that British governments. Remember it. The government here is that British governments. It means Britishers, they were ruling to our countries. They were the ruler. That is why they are the governments. So it means whenever Britishers, they are ruling the country, they are making their policy, how they will exploit to our Indian economies. That is why that time there are some landlord or which are to be called as zamindars. So when they enter to that country, they started to rule to our country. At that time, those who are the landowner or the landlord, they are to be called as zamindar. This zamindar was declared owners of the soils. This zamindar is the owners of the soils. So these owners of the soil, they will fix portions of that land revenue to that British governments. Try to understand. Zamindar will fix that some portions to that governments. But they were given the freedom to that zamindar to collect these revenues from the tiller. Tiller is that peasants, farmers, those who are actually cultivating the land. Those who are actually cultivating the land. These persons, these peoples are to be that called the tiller or tiller of the soil. So those who are to be called that actual cultivators and got bar minimum for survival. It means what is their output from their own lands? The land is not by their ownership of these tillers. So that zamindar exploited to the tillers for that revenue, and maximum revenue they collect from the tillers, and some of the few revenue they paid to the governments, British governments. So this zamindar group, who are that to be called the owner of the soil, they become that very more powerful, or they wished to collect the revenue as per their desires, as per their needs, so that they can to be the very rich and the tillers become the very poorest to the poor. So that is why the zamindar, on the other hand, spend their revenue income on that luxurious lives. Little or no investment was made for the development of the agriculture, so that the agricultural land was not developed, agricultural land was not cultivated properly, because the tillers, they did not get that proper outputs, what they are producing, which they can help that money or help to develop to that particular plot of lands, so that neither zamindar investment for the development of that land, nor tiller invest that money to the development of the land, because the tiller has very poorest and they have no income to invest that particular plot of lands. So that zamindar spend their revenue income on the luxurious of lives. So who enjoy the luxurious of life? Zamindar. So these are the conditions in that colonial systems, because these systems was imposed by that British empires or British rulers, and they tried to exploit it to our Indians. Second point, colonial exploitation of industrial sectors. Colonial exploitation of industrial sectors. Prior to the British rule, industrial sector in India was well known for its handicrafts. It means before that entering that Britishers to our country or to establish the colonial systems, India was famous or well known for our handicrafts works. These handicrafts works were exported to different countries, and India was earning that lot of foreign currencies. But whenever the colonial exploitation started, that time Indian handicrafts, which was worldwide reputations for their variety and quality, these reputation were destroyed by the British governments in two ways. What are these two ways? One is, whenever we exporting that handicrafts goods, they impose that heavy duty on export goods. If that goods will be exported and there will be that more imposing tax, so that value of the goods will be more in that foreign country, so nobody will purchase to that goods. So that goods will not be produced in our own country. The producers or that handicraft manufacturers, they will not be interested, or they will not take interest to produce that types of goods. So foreign demand for the Indian handicrafts was destroyed by way of heavy duty on their exports. So that is why I have written a heavy duty on exports. And secondly, to fulfill our basic needs, what are the goods? That is our demand of the domestic goods. This domestic demand for the Indian handicrafts was destroyed by way of duty-free imports. That is that duty-free imports. It means what are the goods are imported by India? All that goods, there will be no tax, duty is free. As a result of, the goods will be cheaper, so the demands will be more by our own country's peoples. So domestic demand for the Indian handicrafts was destroyed by way of the duty-free imports of the British goods in the Indian markets. That is why our handicrafts work is also destroyed. So it means Indian handicrafts enjoyed worldwide reputations, which was destroyed by these colonial systems or our self-dependence economy systems, self-sustained growth economy systems, which was destroyed by the colonial systems, by the British empires, or that by the ruling of the British countries. And third point, that is the colonial exploitation of international trade and tariff policies. India's international trade was exploited through discriminatory tariff policies. It implied in two ways: duty-free export of Indian raw materials to fulfill industrial needs. Britain's most important, duty-free export of Indian raw materials to fulfill that industrial needs in Britain. It means what goods we are exporting, all kinds of goods that will be the freely, we may say that. And that goods, that raw materials, whatever may be, that will be used in the process of producing the finished products in the foreign countries. Again, what are the finished goods they will sell to our country, or what will the import to our country? The duty of free imports of the British good to expand demand for the British goods in the Indian markets. So that it was owing to discriminatory tariff policy that India becomes importer of that finished goods from Britain and exporter of raw materials to Britain. We are that exporters with the free tariffs, importers discriminatory tariffs. Briefly, into its colonial exploitation, then Indian economy became both significant as well as that backward, so that Indian economy was stagnant conditions. So next we'll start what are the features of Indian economy on the eve of independence. So whenever this system was started by these Britishers countries, we were exploited in such a way that low level of national income and per capita incomes. So our national income decreased, our per capita income decreased. That means the economic conditions of a nation can be judged with the data of national income and the per capita income. It means we may say that one country is developed, US, America is developed, India is developing, another country is underdeveloped. How it is to be said? It can be said by that one country's national income and that per capita income. It means that condition of a country can be judged with the data of national income and the per capita income. It means whose national income is high as well as that per capita income is high, then that country is to be called that developed economy. But in India, we may say that some extent with that other countries are developed because India's national income is high, but accordingly that per capita income is not so high, or that is not increasing accordingly. That is why the most important reason is that India's populations or growth rate of populations. Because if how much is the national income increases, or how much percentage of national income increases, and how much percentage of populations. So that is why it is to be said, if the rate of growth of national income will be more than that of the rate of growth of population, then that is to be called the real increase in the national incomes. So it is the present situation whenever we are calculating the national income and the per capita income. But think it, whenever the Britishers were ruling to our countries, can we say that that time these types of calculation was exist in the markets or not? That kinds of calculations of that national income and per capita income was available during the British governments? No, because people were so much exploited, they were not getting the chance to calculate or to measure that national income and per capita income. But our economists, our thinkers, those who are thinking for the development of a country, those who are thinking for the citizen of our country, those who are thinking how that country will develop, that time, however, no sincere attempt was made by the British government to estimate India's national income or the per capita income. Since that Britishers period, some of the thinkers, good wishers, the attempt were made by experts like that Dadabhai Naroji, you have already known, William Digwe, Finlay Siras, B.K.R.B. Rao, R.C. Desai, all these brilliant persons, thinkers for the development of our economy, estimated the producing the conflicting and inconsistent results, although the result was not sufficient because they were not getting that so much facilities to measure this national income or the per capita income to know the standard of living of a people. However, the estimates of Dr. Rao, V.K.R.B. Rao, on national and per capita incomes were considered very significant. You will be surprised to know from my side that Indian per capita income was only 15 to 23 rupees. Imagine yourself when India got our freedoms. And compare it, what is the stage now, how much is our per capita incomes? Most of the studies relevant here, the country's growth aggregate real output during the first half of the 20th century was less than 2% and only 0.5% growth per capita output per year. These were the conditions during the British period why our country become the dependent, or how our self-dependency, or how our that self-sustained growth was destroyed by that Britishers. That we'll discuss on the eve of independence, Indian economy on the eve of independence. Thank you very much. We'll start tomorrow, that is that agriculture sectors and the eve of independence. Thanks to all of you.